Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. So I often hear on the news about how terrifying it would be to our social security system and to other institutions in our culture if humans started to live longer. If we started to push 100, 120, oh my God, everything would just go crazy. Social security would go broke and all that. And I gotta point out something. If the way you're gonna live to 120 is gonna be when you're 80 years old, you're gonna put yourself on some kind of life support or even freeze yourself and just collect 40 years of social security. Yeah, I guess that could bankrupt everything, right? If the way you're going to live to be 120 is that when you're 80 years old, you're still as physically fit as a 50-year-old, that would be a very different way of living to be 120, right? And I don't find that terrifying. Right? Yes, we might have to adjust Social Security, but guess what? You're going to feel a whole lot better during that adjustment, right? And I don't know why so many people are terrified of living long. One of my favorite examples to use, I'm a math teacher, and one of my favorite examples to use about exponential growth is how much more money you'll have if you can delay your aging and live to be 200, 300, 400 years old. Oh my God, you could own the world. Obviously, that only works if you live to be 400, right? If everybody lives to be 400, the world will just adapt with it, right? And but people get very terrified at that. Especially young kids. Oh my God, I don't want to live to be even 100. And one time I had a kid who his mom was very upset that I had mentioned the idea of living to be 200. And when the mom had explained that they had just lost their grandmother, who was 85 years old, and my son doesn't need to think about 15 years of dying of cancer, right? In the back of I accepted it, but in the back of my mind, living to be 100 doesn't mean you die of cancer for 15 years. It means you delay the cancer for 15 years, right? I didn't explain it to the mom like that. I just kind of accepted it for what it is. Now, I was watching a piece about how population growth is a myth, and how after a certain in the next 100 years population may start shrinking at some point, and how that will be terrifying because as population starts shrinking, everybody will just grow older. On paper, that is, right? Part of the reason for that population shrink is that people are also aging slower in their bodies, right? Of course, people expect to be able to retire when they hit a certain number on paper. And I think that's the big... We'll need some kind of a cultural shift where we stop caring about the number on paper, right? Nowadays, it's kind of taboo to ask people's paper age, right, if you will, right? It might not be so taboo to ask about physical age, though we certainly do talk to one another about sports that we participate in or activities, right? So... even today, right? I work at a community college. People ask each other their physical age a lot more so than their paper age. Right? Obviously, they don't ask for a number, but you get the idea, right? And so everybody's aging slower. The other benefit I can see of this is that obviously, if we don't have as much turnover in terms of people being born and dying, there's a lot less maintenance that needs to be required, right? For example, I teach at a community college. We'd have to educate a lot fewer people. That would free up a lot of resources that we could use for better stuff, right? And also, as I've mentioned in other videos, I believe more than half of our population is some sort of closeted LGBTQ person, especially solosexual. And if we don't need to replace our human population nearly as quickly, all of those can come out of the closet, right? So nothing to be afraid of, right? This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.